What's up, y'all? Welcome back to part 2. I'm so happy you're here. Let's dive in where we left off. You said something about, when you said what you like doing magic, which I never thought about this, but whenever I do see a magician, have you ever met a guy named Brock Gill?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so I used to tour with Brock, and
Oh, cool.
he would do stuff. We
Yeah.
would do massive tours together. He would do stuff that I would just be like, I would get angry at him. I would be so mad. One time
You're like, "What just happened?"
he took a water bottle, and it
Okay.
wasn't even his water bottle. It
Okay.
was my water bottle,
Okay.
okay? And I had a small little Ericsson phone. It was this
Yeah.
big.
Yeah.
And I finished drinking the water bottle, and he grabs it from me, and he goes, "You wanna see a magic trick?" I said, "Cool." Takes my phone, he smashes it together, and then my phone ends up in the water bottle, and he hands it back to me, and I'm looking at where he cut it, where he whatever,
Yeah.
and there was bro,
Nothing.
I started cussing at him. I was like, "What the what?" I was so angry, but at that moment, and what you
Yeah.
just explained, at that moment, I was humbled
Yeah.
because I didn't have the answer.
Right.
And so at that moment, he could have taught me anything
Mm.
about that, and I would have just been, like, soaking it up because
Yeah.
he fully humbled me to the place of, "I have no idea how you did this.
Right.
Please show me and teach me."
Yeah.
And I see, like, that is, like, a really good starting point because when anybody sees you do a trick and they don't understand it or know how you did it, at that moment, they're fully open to you. And whatever's
Yeah.
coming next, it comes with the weight of authority because you just magically got their attention.
Well, yeah, and, I love magic. I mean, you're a musician, you love music, and there's sometimes you see stuff done musically that you're probably frustrated by because you love music?
Mhm,
And the thing
mhm.
for me with magic that's always Jerry Seinfeld had a bit where he's like, "Here's magic." Magicians are always like, "Here's a quarter. Now it's gone. You're an idiot."
Yeah,
Like I never like the idea of making someone feel like you know this information they don't know.
right.
So, but there is something powerful about when somebody discovers that there's more to learn?
Mm,
And so I always try to do a magic trick in a way that it like invites people into like, not like, hey, look at this cool thing I can do, but like, hey, did you know this was possible? Like, what else might be possible
mm.
if we work together or took this different perspective? So I think it's a fun way to kind of get into some of those conversations about like, what else is out there.
Yeah. And, okay, so, like you said earlier, you like to ask people, "When was the last time you changed your mind?" So,
Yeah.
when was the last time you changed your mind?
Oh my gosh, okay. See, I should have. I knew when I brought that up, I should have thought about what the last thing that I changed my mind was.
Or at least
Um,
the last, okay, let's make it
yeah.
more acute. The last big spiritual thing you changed your mind on.
Mm,
For me,
yeah.
it's a controversial topic, but
Give it to
it
me.
it would be when I stopped being so dogmatic about, gay Christians,
Mm,
because when I was in church fully, like I said, a professional Christian, when I was doing that, it was a simple black or white answer for me.
mm,
But that also was because I knew nobody that was in that life. So I wasn't
yeah.
able to even give you a point of reference.
Mm,
Then I got married and half of her family is gay, and then moved to LA, and now I'm meeting believers that are all, you know, professing Christ like me and gay.
yeah. Yeah.
And so I was hit, like I said, life always hits you and now forces you to, what do you really think? Because all these people sound like me, look like me, are worshiping God like me, are reading this
Mm,
Bible like me. They're doing everything like me. There's
yeah.
not a single difference. The
Yeah.
only difference comes to who they love.
Yeah.
And I started falling in love with my brothers and sisters of that life, and it was so beautiful to me that I was like, "Man, the only difference is that I actually gave it a shot." Because before,
Right.
it was always, be of the world, but not no, be in the world, but not of the world,
Right.
if you're gonna talk to any one of them, make sure
Yeah.
it's to save them or to let them know that they can
crazy.
come back. Like, all this, like, stuff where I'm
Yeah.
like, "That's not relationship. That's you're just hanging around trying to wait for a weak moment to try to, like, snare them or catch them in something and get them back to team
Yeah.
Jesus." And I'm like, once I just started doing life, I started realizing, "Oh, no, we're alike." Like, all of us are
Yeah.
way more alike than we are different, and you guys made me believe that we were different
Right.
because of who we love.
I know it's
So that
yeah,
was the biggest thing that now I'm like, "Oh, I had to change my mind." Now it's
yeah.
like
Yeah. That's huge, man. That's huge. I think that it's weird how often we we take what our experience is and we say that's what God is, right?
yeah.
Like, God's heterosexual, God's an American, God, like
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like I think it's like, first of all, everything you're reading was written on the other side of the world thousands of years ago.
Mhm, mhm.
um and I also think too that like I had a lot of beliefs that I attributed to Jesus, and then I reread stuff and when he never talked about any of it.
Yeah.
But there's a whole bunch of stuff. He says a lot about widows and orphans, and
Mhm.
I wasn't doing anything to help in that aspect of my life. And so
Yeah.
I just think, yeah, I think that if we're not careful, we can kind of like it always amazed me, like, when someone is like, I'm a Calvinist and I believe that there's only a few that are elect, and I just happen to be in that group of elect people. It's
It's
like,
always I just happen to be, yeah.
yeah, I think, this new book that I'm writing, one of the things I talk about is how if your beliefs only benefit you and your demographic and what, the group that you're a part of, then you should question those beliefs more, right?
Right, right.
Because if ultimate truth only serves to make your life easier and better, then I'd question if that really is the case. And if it is, man, you are so lucky that you just happen to be born into this body, into this place, into this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I totally do. Speaking
So
of your book, so it's the new book that's coming out, so it's called Misdirection: A Magician's Guide to Avoid Manipulation. So in Publishers Weekly, what they wrote up, which I thought was dope. So it talks about you emceeing for Bob Goff, which Bob Goff is amazing,
he's the best.
which a lot of people know him. But for his conferences, it says, excuse me, it reveals how the same tools magicians use for misdirection have found their way into churches, communities, businesses, and politics.
Yeah.
That was such a good quote. Like, it was such a good, like, I'm like, what was the correlation? Like, what
Yeah.
did you see? Like, what
Yeah. I
made
mean,
that be the log line of like what your book's about?
yeah. I mean, my whole life for entertainment, I've studied how to deceive people.
Mhm.
As a magician, that's what I do. Is I think, how can I catch someone off guard so I can surprise them with like a beautiful surprise, right?
Right, right.
But misdirection outside of a theater, misdirection when it happens in your family or when it happens in your work or when it happens at your church, it doesn't add value, it takes away,
Mm,
and I think that for most of us, if you go to the Magic Castle in LA, you go in going like, all right, someone's going to try to fool me and it's going to be great,
right,
right? Someone's
right.
going to surprise me and catch me off guard and it's going to add to my experience, and my night's going to be better because of it. We don't go into church on a Sunday morning with that same attitude of like, hey, somebody might be trying to misdirect me.
Mm,
We don't approach the office and think, hey, I should be careful. Some people might have ulterior motives that aren't really what we're about in this environment, and
yeah,
so as a magician, like there's a trick in every chapter. I'm going to explain a simple magic trick. I'm going to teach you a simple magic trick so that I can then explain how that trick, how that principle is at play in other aspects of our life,
mm,
right? So it could be as simple as cutting a rope in half and putting it back together.
yeah,
That's an amazing magic trick, right?
yeah.
The way that trick works is you never actually cut the rope in half.
Hmm.
You make it look like you cut the rope in half, and then everyone applauds when it goes back together. And that's great when it happens in a magic show. It's terrible when you walk into an environment and someone tries to make you feel like you're broken so they can take credit for putting you back together. And it
Oof.
happens every single day in all different environments. There's another trick where you put a quarter on a table, and I still do this at the dinner table. I learned this when I was like 8 years old. You put a quarter on the table and it's heads up, and you say, "I'm gonna make it go tails up without touching it." But so that you can't see when it happens, I'm going to cover it with this salt shaker and cover the napkin with the salt shaker. I wave my hands and I snap like that. And now you go, now it's tails up. Do you want to see it again? And they, of course, go, yeah. And you go, wave my hands and snap. Now it's heads up again. And you lift it up and they laugh because it's a joke. But then you go, watch, we'll do something else. You take the salt shaker and cover it with a napkin and you snap your fingers and you go, boom, and you shove the salt shaker through the table.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole way that trick works is I got you so focused on the quarter. I made you think the most important thing to me was the quarter, that I could do whatever I wanted with the salt shaker because you weren't paying attention to it.
Mm.
And I think that sneaks in. You know, we get a certain viewpoint. The church adopts a certain viewpoint or a certain political party. They make it all about this one thing, and you vote for this group because if you don't vote, this one thing that you think is really bad is going to happen.
Wow.
And we get so narrowly focused on one thing, thinking that that's all life is, that we're getting robbed blindly without even realizing it. So
I cannot wait to read this book. That is so dope. It's what we've essentially done in our politics. It's like everyone knows the Christian faith. We vote for anti-gay marriage, anti-abortion, and those are our things. That's it. Like those are polls. Doesn't matter about character. Doesn't matter about whether it's really gonna. We vote against ourselves in so many ways because we just want those two things, because we have been sold into believing this means Christian.
Yeah. And that doesn't line up with, I mean, that making those things your make or break. I don't see it lining up with anything Jesus said. And I also don't see it lining up with historically the way the church voted. Like if you think about like when did the abortion thing become a make or break issue? Well, it was when a certain group needed power and they needed, we can rally people around like a common team, like a sports team, right? It's kind of like when people go like, I love the Bills, right? I love the Bills. They're my team. Or anyone who's playing against this other team.
Right.
And so we kind of make common enemies and we go like, hey, those are the bad guys. We have to stop the bad guys. How do we do that? Yeah. You vote this way, you go to this place, you do this thing. And it's like, well, what else is going on over here? It's not a one issue thing.
It's not that easy. And that's the thing. And I remember when certain friends of mine, they were believers, found out I voted for a certain person, they questioned my whole Christianity, which I thought was very telling, because I was like, man, I don't understand how you could judge an entire life by this one thing, and especially since you know me. So it was very unsettling to think that way, and I never wanted to do that. To me, I'm just like, I need to learn how to get back to the place where I wasn't affected or afraid of different beliefs. Like it doesn't scare me. Like your belief of this does not now mess up my belief of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But people think that can't exist.
Well, and the idea that like, oftentimes we can take this standpoint. I used to take the standpoint of like what I believe is true and it's right and it's the only way, right?
Yeah.
But then I'd be fearful of someone else sharing their belief. If you feel like what you believe is the truth isn't afraid of questioning. Like this is why court cases start with asking a ton of questions,
right?
Because they know if we ask questions, the truth will get revealed.
Yeah.
And I just think, I think whenever, and again, this thing that I'm writing, and when I talk about this stuff, the last thing I want to do is talk someone into or out of something that's bringing them life. I just want to encourage everybody, ask more questions.
Yeah.
Like if you are repeating something constantly and you feel like it's so important and you feel like if other people aren't believing that it's gonna hurt them, you should question that constantly.
Why do you think people don't?
Because it's easier not to.
Yeah.
I think I remember having a point where when I left the church in the capacity that I was involved, and I was trying to like just, have my faith not be attached to a specific place. It's hard. I mean, it's like you said, when people go like, oh, where do you go to church? Or who did you vote for? What do you believe in this and that? And they want quick answers rather than a conversation. you have this mental gymnastics sometime of having to be like, well, that's a big issue. That's, we should have a drink or have some food and like talk through this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of just easier to be like, yeah, this is the box I fit in, which is also why I think it's easy to question people outside of your belief system. But if somebody says they belong, we don't really question it.
Right.
Like I was in church hurting for a long time. Everyone thought I was great because I was turning up, you know?
Yeah.
So
Nina Valdez, one of the comments, she says, one of the most valuable things I ever learned in high school and speech and debate, they taught us that you don't really know what you believe until you can successfully argue for the opposition.
yeah,
Dang.
it's so good.
Successfully argue for the opposition.
Yeah.
That's so deep because what that means is you have to fully immerse yourself in that person's situation. You have to
Yes.
put yourself in their shoes.
Yeah.
Which is something that I did in multiple big issues.
Mhm.
Abortion was one of them. It's like,
Yeah.
I cannot argue from this side if I've never been in this person's shoes.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna say luckily, but I've known personal friends that
Right.
have walked through that,
Yeah.
and they're telling me their decision process and what brought them to that,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, I
I
could
can't imagine it.
never.
I
I
cannot
could
I cannot
never.
imagine.
I can't even I remember, and this is me telling on myself, and this is so I'm so like I think I've shared this before, but I remember one time, and God forgive me, but uh me and this girl that I was seeing, we slipped up and we didn't even have sex.
Yeah.
Didn't even have sex. Though we were, we definitely didn't have clothes on, but we didn't have sex. Which helps the story because we were so afraid that something creeped in
Yeah. Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
she went and took the morning after pill the next day. I had to drive her to CVS. And
Wow,
I'm like,
man.
we were so riddled with guilt and shame and all this stuff that we were like, we actually thought that we were gonna be the second Mary and Joseph, even though we did not have sex. And I was like, that's how scared I was, and I knew, biologically speaking, this was
Right.
impossible.
Right.
Now put myself in the position of somebody who did have actual sex, and now this is on the horizon. Mind you, at
Yeah.
this point, I'm still a touring musician.
Yeah.
I'm still a Christian musician. I'm preaching to people, and I felt so much anxiety that people will find out that this is what I'm doing when the doors are closed, that I went this far, and
Yeah.
it affected us both really bad. And I'm
Yeah.
like, just that alone was enough fear for me to do something crazy. I can only imagine what other people feel.
Yeah.
So I think
Well, and to you had shared a little bit about how, you had some viewpoints about certain people and then realize you got married and like now you have family members who are gay, right?
Mhm.
And I just think it's easy to criticize people's life when you don't know their life,
Yeah.
and I think that, you know, when it comes to any issue that you are adamant about, it's like, man, you should probably talk to someone who's experienced that or is going through that or that's their perspective.
Yeah.
And you learn real quickly. Like it's easy to go in a voting booth and check a box. It's really hard to look someone in the eye and hear their pain and hear what they're going through and
Mhm.
not be like, man, we need to love people more, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I think that's
And
so important.
but it's hard to monetize love, and it's hard to, uh love is not as, I think sometimes it's not as easy to motivate groups around love. It's really easy to get groups riled up around fear.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I just think if fear is a motivating factor, whether it be about what's gonna happen to you when you die or what's gonna happen to the country if we don't vote a certain way, if fear is your major motivator, I invite you to re-examine the teachings of Jesus if you claim to follow him
Right.
and see if fear or love was a bigger factor for that guy.
Wow.
I mean,
That's heavy.
I'm sorry.
No, you're so
I
right.
can do
Like
we can do
I
a
was
magic trick. No.
I was literally thinking of all the ways like people get motivated, and when it comes to war, when it comes to religion, it's usually founded in fear, because fear does motivate people way more than like,
Right.
hey, this is the loving thing to do.
And fear, and a lot of times the fear is not directed in, oh man, we have to act now or this group of people is going to be hurting. The fear is if we don't act now, that group is going to take something away from me.
Take something from me, yeah.
Right? We fear, people don't fear change. We say like, oh, I don't like change. We don't fear change. We fear loss, right? If I said, hey, I'm going to give you $2 million cash, that would change your life. I don't think you'd be afraid of it, right?
Yeah, right.
But if I said I'm going to take something from you, now it's a different kind of feeling. And I think a lot of times, in an effort to easily motivate people, we just make them afraid. We make them afraid that if you love someone, it's going to negatively hurt you. And
Yeah,
I don't see that meshing with a belief system that is all based on sacrificial love and
yeah,
giving up your entire life. And it's like, well, you give up your entire life. You won't give up one opinion to help
yeah,
someone else. I mean,
yeah.
I just think, sorry, no, I don't want to, I don't preach
No, I
anymore. I don't want
fully
to start doing
agree, I
it.
fully agree, and you know what the beautiful thing is too, is that I find myself, like, with fear is short-lived because it's so easily combated. So, like,
Hmm.
be afraid of this president, be afraid of this president. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna go to hell. The country's gonna go to hell. We saw that on the last
Yeah.
election before
Everything. Yeah.
Biden. It's
Right.
gonna go crappy, you know? And yes, there were things that were not great.
Yeah.
There's things that are not great about a lot of presidencies, but we're still here.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like, okay, the person that I want may not get in, but we're
Yeah.
still here. And
Yeah.
so this doomsday, the country's going to crap and we're gonna fall into the whatever.
Right.
I just can't believe that anymore,
Well,
because I
and yeah.
I
And
never
it,
saw Jesus really care about which Caesar was in power, or which he didn't like spend a lot of time scaring us into. He just kind of like, "Yep, that's what it is. Render unto
yeah.
Caesar what is Caesar's," but I'm
Yeah.
operating in another kingdom.
Yeah. 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 And, yeah, you're absolutely right. We've kind of gone through several different presidencies lately that have been polarizing to different groups, right?
Mhm.
And yes, we've survived. Yes, the country has survived thus far, but a lot of families aren't talking to each other
Right,
anymore. You know what
right.
I mean? It's like people aren't doing Thanksgiving the way they used to. I think sometimes we can grab onto an issue and go like, this is the most important thing, and in the process we lose the most important thing because we've let this misdirection or this emphasis on some things that maybe aren't as critical,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
I agree.
if it costs you, people you love, and granted, like sometimes, yeah, like sometimes you're gonna go after what you believe, and other people aren't gonna jump on board, and I totally get that. But I just think like, you know, if we let love lead as opposed to letting fear and you know
I love
loss
what you
be our
said,
thing.
which, when you said if your beliefs or the things that you think, always have you on the right side or your team winning, you
Yeah.
should probably check your beliefs, because I think I've never met someone who was so staunch on, who's going to hell,
Right.
without them fully believing that they were the ones going to heaven. And
Right.
it really always I'm always like, "Doesn't this work out so good that you're able to just tell me
I
that
know.
I'm going to hell or who's going to hell, and
Right.
you just happen to always be going to heaven in this scenario."
Yeah.
So that's one of the things where I'm like, "Man, I used to be that guy. I really used to be that guy, and now
Yeah.
it just doesn't appease me anymore." So when does this book come out? I know it's
Yeah, we're talking way early. I just turned in the book. Traditional publishing is so slow. So we're going to come out like January of next year,
okay.
but which would be great because we're right in the middle of the next presidential election. So we
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
talk more
and
about
this
this
isn't your
stuff.
first book. You said I was reading that you had more, yeah?
Yeah, so I put out my first book about a year and a half ago called Road to Wonder. and it's much more lighthearted.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like personal stories, re-examining stories from your life through the eyes of wonder and going, what did I take away from that? So that one's really, it's a lot of really funny stories, some emotional stories, some that are really embarrassing and I probably shouldn't have put in,
Yeah.
but yeah, but that one's out now if people want to
We'll
grab
be
it.
sure to put those links down at the bottom, and
Sweet.
so that people can for sure catch up to it. Because I think I'm excited for this next book. Because just from the little bit you said now, I was like, damn, this sounds like it's gonna be a really good book. Are you gonna do an Audible?
I am, yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
for
good.
sure. For
'Cause I'm
sure.
an Audible dude. Like,
Oh,
I
me too.
love
Me too.
listening when I'm washing the car or doing whatever, and then just
Yeah.
jotting down notes as I read or as I listen.
Yeah.
Helps me get through a lot of books. My assistant said, which, Joanna says, "Have him do a magic trick before he ends." But I don't know if this is the best setup, Joanna. He's kinda close.
I'm like, what do I let me see. I don't even know what I have here. Hold on.
Yeah.
We could try this. Let's see. We'll try this.
Let's see if it
Let's
works.
see what I have in the old tough shit here. So here's a trick people can do. This is a simple one. You
Okay.
get let's see if we can get a little ball and you
Okay.
rub it like this. So you can do this with it. You get a little ball, you rub it, get a little static electricity, and you can make it look like that ball.
Oh,
The ball
snaps.
is floating.
Oh, snaps.
Yeah. Or you just get a soup ladle. It's like way easier.
Oh,
Just get you gotta get the angle.
what the
But if you get the angle, woo,
Oh, man.
it's
I
really
thought
dumb,
it
but everyone's
was
gonna do it. Everyone's gonna do it.
That shows how dumb I am. I was like, "Whoa." I was looking for the string. I was like, "You got a string somewhere." It's a damn ladle. Thanks, Grandma. You made me look hella dumb in front of people. Bro, I'm
Oh my
so
gosh.
appreciative of you coming on.
I'm so grateful. Thanks for letting me crash the party.
Yeah,
And
dude. I'm
I love
excited for your book. We'll definitely promote it, especially when it comes back out. When it comes out, I'd love to have
yeah.
you back on and
Oh, we'll do it. We'll do it. It'll be so fun.
we can talk about it. Guys, thanks so much for listening, especially those of you who were live. We appreciate you guys. Make sure to subscribe and do all the fun things. We appreciate you. We love you. And like we always say, we pray you find a seat at the table. But if you don't, you're always welcome at ours. Cheers.